everybody. Happy Friday. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Lymph Lounge, the conversational podcast about cultivating a state of flow in our bodies and our lives. So sit back and relax because today I'm sharing with you my thoughts on the lymph becoming a new trend. Also, part one of the drainage pathways and a dry brushing guide. If you are brand new, just a quick introduction. I'm Genevieve Albert Mawini. I am a retired facialist turned lymph naturopath a few years ago. My business is the Lymph Initiatives, a well-aging and longevity institute specializing in lymphatic health and drainage. Because if there is one thing that I understood early on in my career is when you drain better, your body can regenerate faster, and this in turn creates optimal radiance and vitality naturally. And I am super passionate about sharing all things lymph and how to harness the power of the lymph for well-aging and longevity. And this is one of the reasons I started this podcast. So this week, we are kickstarting this episode with some thoughts that I have about the lymph becoming a trend. So for this week's weekly thoughts segment, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind lately, which is the lymph as a new, quote unquote, trend. Now, don't get me wrong. I love that the lymph is finally getting the attention it deserves. However, after almost 2 decades in the health and beauty industry and many years specializing in the lymph, I know far too well what happens when something starts to get attention. Everyone suddenly wants to capitalize on it. And this creates an environment that becomes very susceptible to false information. And I am starting to witness this phenomenon more and more as months go by when it comes to the lymph. I realize that more than ever, I have a role to play in providing education on the lymph, on the lymphatic system as well, and especially in its relationship to aging. So let me start with something that happened a few weeks ago. I actually posted on social about this. I had someone come in for their first manual lymph drainage treatment. At the end of the service, they shared with me that they had in the past received a quote unquote, again, lymphatic facial, and that it was nothing like what they just received. There was no drainage movements like the technique I used. And basically it was advertised as a facial with argyroline after I did a little bit of digging. Argyroline is a popular peptide that claims to mimic the effect of Botox by relaxing the muscle. Argyroline is a protein that affects nerve-muscle communication to limit your facial muscle movement and decrease the expression of dynamic wrinkles. That's what they claim with it. First of all, side note, argyroline is not a lymphatic ingredient. If anything, it reduces lymph flow because it claims to smooth the muscles. Secondly, if you are looking to cultivate proper lymph flow, which I called your innate fountain of youth, really, the last thing you want to do is anything that prevents muscle contractions, which is one of the ways that the lymph flows through our body. So any ingredients that mimic that effect is a big fat no in my books. So when looking for lymph practitioners, try as much as possible to go to a VODR trained professionals. There's another episode on the podcast actually where I list other techniques other than VODR. VODR is the one that I'm familiar with. There are also a couple more that are true lymph drainage. I will link that in the episode description. But you have to look for one of the original unadulterated methods of lymph drainage and avoid anything that claims to relax muscles. So I just wanted to kind of share this reminder as the lymph will become more and more popular in the next couple years or maybe the next couple decades, because I'll tell you in 2016, I wasn't hearing much about the lymph, but I am starting to hear more, which is good. But what it means when something starts to become a trend or start to become more popular, we have to increase our discernment, especially when it comes to what the service actually entails. Is it manual lymph drainage? And also when it comes to the training the practitioner has received. So last Sunday, I attended a wellness fair for local businesses. And at that event, we could do a presentation. And I decided to do a presentation on the drainage pathways and some simple things you can do every day to support them. And I want to share this information with you on the podcast as well. So there are 9 drainage pathways or drainage channels, if you will, or routes that the lymph works with. And I will divide it in 2 parts. First part is in today's episode, and the second part will be in the next episode. And I decided to talk about the drainage pathways at the fair because I find it's important to highlight that the lymph and the lymphatic system, they never work alone. They help to support everything else. So in last week's episode, I talked about how I feel like the lymph and the lymphatic system work like a taxi or shuttle service for the waste that is produced by the body. It kind of works in the background. And that background work that it does is with those pathways that we're going to talk about in the next 2 episodes. So hopefully that helps you get the bigger picture of the major role that the lymph plays in keeping the body healthy and balanced, and that it's not just about manual lymph drainage. Manual lymph drainage is an excellent place to start supporting your lymph, but there's a lot more you can do, just simple steps in your daily life. So let's start with the glymphatic system, the first pathway. The glymphatic system is a brain-wide fluid transport system discovered by Dr. Maiken Nedergaard in 2012. The glymphatic system removes waste products and excess proteins. So remember that one of the jobs of the lymphatic system is to transport proteins. And to support the brain, it drains excess proteins such as amyloid beta, which are associated with neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. So it drains the excess protein. It empties into the deep cervical lymph nodes. So proper glymphatic drainage is important for general brain health for sure. So how do you support your glymphatic system? The most important is restful sleep. Drainage of the glymphatic system happens during slow wave sleep, often referred to as deep sleep. It is the third stage of non-rapid eye movement sleep where the brain activity is characterized by slow delta waves. So slow wave sleep usually lasts between 70 and 90 minutes, taking place during the first hours of the night. So allowing for enough bedtime and going to bed at a reasonable time is key here. And slow wave sleep is also strongly correlated with whole body cooling. So increasing your brain and body temperature before sleep, either with exercise or passive heating, and I'm going to give you some examples, results in heat loss during the night as your body cools itself down. And that heat loss, in turn, increases the slow wave sleep that you get. So in other words, a bath or a foot bath or even a hot shower before bed can help your body get to the optimal internal temperature needed for a good night's rest so your glymphatic system can actually drain. Remember, the lymph system, it's all about simple. Who knew that taking a bath helps to support your lymphatic system? Because it leads to better sleep and then better drainage. A heating blanket can also do wonders as well. I love my heating blanket. And then sleeping in a cool room to help the body cool down. So increasing the body temperature before you go to bed, and then allowing for cooling of the body during the night. So a cool room helps the body cool down and supports that process. So that's what I'm saying when I say that the lymphatic system doesn't need much. Literally, something as simple as a hot shower or a foot bath before bed can help support drainage. And as for during the day, standing as much as possible helps keep the flow going from head to toe. I keep reading everywhere that sitting is the new secondhand smoke, and it's mainly for that reason because the drainage cannot happen. As for treatments, craniosacral therapy or osteopathy, manual lymph drainage, of course, those can all help the drainage of the glymphatic system. Then we have the lungs. The lungs are very rich in lymphatic vessels and provide an essential secondary detoxification function by expelling gas waste byproducts such as VOCs, protein breakdown byproducts such as ammonia, and certain medications such as anesthetics. One of the best ways to support the lung drainage is to do deep belly breathing. Again, simple, right? Other things such as aerobic exercise, of course, home air filters when needed, and avoidance of contact with those substances as much as possible. Watching the products that you buy for possible VOC. So those are volatile organic compounds, such as cleaning products or paint. And the other thing, too, that I like to talk about when I talk about the drainage pathways is the emotions associated with each one. Because in Chinese medicine, every organ has an emotion attached to it that affects that organ. And it just turns out that a lot of those organs also serve as drainage pathways. So the emotions associated with those pathways can also affect the drainage. So the emotion associated with the lung is grief or sorrow. So working through those emotions with either EFT tapping or Qigong exercises can help release the emotions, and of course, counseling or therapy, whatever works best for you. And grief or sorrow can also show up as wrinkles or skin issues in the eye or cheek area. So by working on those emotions, you are also supporting the skin. Again, in Chinese medicine, the skin is the third lung. So there is a deep connection there too. Deep belly breathing helps to support not only your lymphatic system and your lungs, but also the skin. Talking about the skin, let's move on to the skin as a drainage pathway. Yes, the skin is actually a key drainage pathway as well. What the skin does is it takes on the waste overload and acts as an emergency exit route for waste that cannot be processed by the liver or the kidneys and cannot be eliminated through the colon or the large intestine. And I will tell you, as a retired facialist, my skincare philosophy has evolved a lot over the years, and my sole focus now is how can we support the skin's detoxification's role? So I no longer spend time on trying to find what is wrong with your skin or how we can fix, quote unquote, your skin. There's nothing wrong with your skin. It doesn't need to be fixed. It needs to be supported. And I now use skincare in my practice as a support tool and a tool for detoxification, not as a solution or a fix. So how do we support the skin without skincare products? There's a couple things. Again, deep belly breathing. The skin is your third lung. It helps as a secondary detoxification pathway. Dry brushing. It helps to activate the lymph vessel network that is situated just a few millimeters under the skin. Sweating. Sweating has been shown to help eliminate heavy metals, urea, excess salts, and minerals. Also, eating enough supportive fats. So fat-soluble pollutants such as pesticides, excess saturated fats, and cholesterol are excreted through sebum, the oil on the surface of the skin. Another way to support the skin is gua sha. Gua sha is not a lymph drainage technique, but it helps improve the quality of the skin, and that in turn helps with better drainage in that area. Epsom salt baths are also a good way to help the skin detoxify. As for technologies, I get that question a lot. Microcurrent and red or infrared light therapy, those frequencies really help stimulate the skin. Microcurrent or other types of healing currents work really well for any type of lymph work, really. So as the last drainage pathways for today, I want to finish with the mitochondria. The mitochondria is in all cells. It is the engine of the cell that powers all of its activities. Certain types of cells, such as muscle cells, even have multiple mitochondria. So mitochondrial drainage is a fairly recent field of study, and studies so far have shown that the mitochondria does drain its waste in the spaces between the cells. So those spaces are filled with fluid, and it's called the extracellular matrix. And that waste is picked up by the lymph vessels. So if lymph drainage is not happening very well in that fluid in between the cells, the extracellular matrix, there can be a lot of buildup there too, and that can affect the surrounding cells and the makeup of the tissues and the organs. So it's quite an interesting field of study. And the other thing that's interesting with the mitochondria is it can be sensitive to waste buildup in the environment surrounding the cell. So not only can it create buildup very easily in the extracellular matrix if the lymph drainage is not happening. It is also very sensitive to that waste buildup. So, this could explain in part why we can become tired or sluggish when we're not draining properly, or when we have lifestyle habits that prevent proper drainage in the body, such as not enough sleep, sedentary lifestyle, not enough supportive fats, or in the diet, or the quality and quantity of water we are drinking, or even alcohol consumption. I'm not teaching you anything new here. So, to me, there could be a link there. Additionally, the mitochondria has been shown to be very sensitive to radiation such as EMF and also to mold. And mold is more prominent than you think. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. So, when thinking about the mitochondria, how can we expect organs to drain properly and excrete waste if the very engine of the very cells that make up those organs are not doing well? So, I am keeping a close eye on this developing field of study. And so far, the top things that I can see to help support the mitochondrial health seem to be fulvic and humic acid. So, in substances like shilajit, amino acids, and also coenzyme Q10. This week's free resource is a guide on dry brushing. Dry brushing is a technique of using a brush dry on the skin, and it provides multiple benefits. I actually shared this guide in the newsletter earlier this year, but I thought I would share it again as it can help activate drainage all over the body, especially on the skin. So, dry skin brushing helps improve general health by stimulating the lymph system and increasing blood circulation. It stimulates oil and hormone producing glands by activating the pores, allowing the skin to breathe more freely and still retain its natural oils, leaving your skin soft and glowing. So, dry brushing increases the pore activity, promoting toxin and uric acid removal in the skin. Remember, I said the skin is a detoxification organ. It takes on the extra load. So, dry brushing helps to activate the skin that way. Brushing is rejuvenating as well because it affects the nervous system by awakening the nerve endings in your skin. We have a ton of nerve endings in our skin, and that helps to stimulate those. It can be done in less than 10 minutes. So you can brush before, after your shower or bath, or before, after the sauna, the hot tub, or swim. Because of its energizing qualities, though, the best time for your dry brushing practice, I would say, is in the morning. Also, when dry brushing, use a light pressure, just enough to stretch the skin. And when the skin becomes a pinkish tone, this is a good sign of increased circulation. Lighter is better for moving lymph fluid. I'm sure you are not surprised by that. With the lymph, a lighter is always better. So, some tips to get started with dry brushing. First of all, selecting the right tools. Natural or vegetable bristle brushes seems to work better. They work great for that. You typically use a larger brush or a larger brush head with natural bristles for the body, and then a smaller brush with softer bristles for the face, and even perhaps a long handle to brush the body so you can reach the back and hard to reach area. So the face brush also includes natural bristles, but the tool is much smaller and finer for the face. Again, make sure you brush in light strokes, especially light when you begin. If brushing hurts, because that can happen at the beginning, it means your skin is very congested. So lighten your pressure and your speed, slow down your speed until it feels more comfortable. Skin congestion is often caused by things like foaming cleansers, abrasive exfoliants, exfoliating acids, or vitamin A ingredients. So eliminating all of the above will certainly help your skin. It is normal for skin to turn a rosy tone, especially at the beginning, and especially if brushing is tender at first. It may also feel itchy. This means the skin congestion is wearing off. Things are starting to move. As for the direction, you want to generally stroke upward in one motion and stroke towards the heart for upper body and towards the groin for lower body. I do have a very detailed protocol step by step with images in the PDF version of this guide here today on the podcast. So if you do want to have access to that resource, you can sign up to the newsletter at lymphinitiatives.com/newsletter, and you will have access not only to that PDF, but also all the past PDFs. Some additional advice I have for you as well. It can be good to follow brushing with some form of hydrotherapy, so a shower or a bath. My general 2 rules on dry brushing is always go towards the chest area and start close to the body and move away from the body, so small strokes. As to frequency, perform dry brushing daily if possible, but don't forget to be kind and compassionate to yourself and to not put too much pressure on yourself. So this is what I had today for you in the Lymph Lounge. I hope you enjoyed today's topics. I would love to hear your main takeaway if you have any. You can leave me a rating or a review, even a comment on the blog post, and you can also ask your question there as well. Again, this podcast is available on Pocket Casts, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify podcast platforms, as well as my own website, lymphinitiatives.com/podcast, in the form of a blog post, and also on YouTube. Make sure you go ahead and follow or subscribe and turn on notifications depending on which platform you are on. Have a great weekend, everybody, and I will see you in the next episode.